We are now going to look at how to solve quadratic equations, and our first method we're going to look at is factoring. In the next few videos we'll touch on factoring, square rooting, completing the square, and the quadratic formula. We're going to start with factoring. This is definitely the easiest method if it's factorable, and if you are good at factoring, which I hope you are by now because we've practiced it quite a bit. So, first thing you should always look for is a greatest common factor. Both of these terms have an x, they're both divisible by 3, so I'm going to factor out a 3x, which leaves me an x and then a minus 3, and that's going to equal 0. Now that I've factored it into two different factors, I can say, well, I know either that's 0 or that's 0. So I can write two different equations, one where 3x equals 0, and one where x minus 3 equals 0. And this equation here, when I divide by 3, I just get x equals 0, and that's one of my solutions. In this equation here, I add 3 both sides to get x alone, and I get x equals 3 as my other solution. And of course we want to check those solutions, and when you plug them each in to our original equation, you do indeed get 0. One more example of factoring in which there's not a greatest common factor. So, first thing you're going to want to do is make sure it's equal to 0. So I'm actually going to subtract 1 from each side to get this. Then I'm going to try to factor this. Again, there's no greatest common factor, so I'm going to set up my parentheses. 2x squared is going to come from 2x times x. Negative 1, well, it's got to be a 1 and 1, but one of them's got to be negative. And if you make that one negative and that one positive, you'll get the positive x in the middle. Now I've broken it up into two factors, and I set them each equal to 0 to get my solutions. So, this one gives me 2x equals 1, so x equals 1/2. And if I subtract 1 from each side, I get x equals negative 1. And again, if you plug both of those into our original equation to check them, you will see that both of those answers work. So there are my answers, and that's how you solve by factoring.